Vasishta. And then Prabhupada is describing this word Swa Bhavanat. Lord Brahma descended from his own abode, and that is describing how every demigod has his own abode. Now, Vishnu Chakravarti gives a little more details about this genealogy here. So he says, knowing that Priyavrat, detached since childhood, would leave the house and go to the forest, Manu appointed his younger brother to rule the kingdom. His descendants up to the Prachetas ruled the kingdom. In this way, half of Swayambhu Manvantar passed up to the Prachetas. Daksha was born a second time as the son of the Prachetas during Swayambhuva Manvantar. But with a desire to attain his previous powers, he went to perform austerities. Since there was no king, Manu, seeing no alternative, wanted to bring Priyavrat back from the forest. When he was not able to bring him back, Brahma came and made Priyavrat rule the kingdom. Priyavrat's descendants ruled until the 5th Manvanta. Since the 3rd, 4th, and the 5th Manus, Uttama, Tamasa, and Rebata were the sons of Priyavrat, with only the 2nd Manu, Swarochisha, intervening. He was the son of Agni. The sons and grandsons of these Manus ruled as kings over the earth as descendants of Priyavrat's line. Then at the beginning of the Chakshusha Manvantar, giving up his austerities, Daksha, in Uttanapa's line, became the king and engaged in producing population. So that's how these various events have been taking place. So now, Swayambhu Manu wanted Priyavrat to rule because there was no king at this point of time. And so Brahma personally, along with his all associates, is coming to convince him. Okay, so now you can read the translations, beginning from the 8th verse. So this is the big section of this chapter from 8 to 19, where Brahma is trying to convince Priyavrat Maharaj.
As the Lord Brahma descended on his career, thus the great swan, all the residents of the planets named Siddhaloka, Gandharvaloka, Satyaloka, Charnaloka, as well as great sages and demigods, flying in their different airplanes, assembled within the canopy of the sky to receive Lord Brahma and worship him. As he received respect and adoration from residents of various planets, Lord Brahma appeared just like the full moon surrounded by illuminating stars. Lord Brahma's great swan then arrived at the border of Gandhamadhana hill and approached Prince Priyavrata, who was sitting there.
Okay, next.
Lord Brahma, the father of Narada Muni, is a supreme person within this universe. As soon as Narada saw the great swan, he could understand that Lord Brahma had arrived. Therefore, he immediately stood up along with the Swayambhu Manu and his son Priyavrata, whom Narada was instructing. Then they folded their hands and began to worship Lord Brahma with great respect.
Okay, next.
My dear King Parikshit, because Lord Brahma has finally descended from Satyaloka to Bhuloka, Narada Muni, Prince Priyavrata, and Swayambhu Manu came forward to offer him objects of worship and to praise him in highly qualified language, according to Vedic etiquette. At that time, Lord Brahma, the original person of this universe, felt compassion for Priyavrata and looking upon him with a smiling face, spoke to him as follows.
Yes. So Prabhupada writes, this is gone again, that Lord Brahma descended from Satyaloka to see Priyavrat indicates that the matter was very serious. Narad Muni had come to advise Priyavrat about the value of spiritual life, knowledge, renunciation, and bhakti, and Lord Brahma knew that Narada's instructions were very impressive. Therefore, unless Lord Brahma personally went to Gandhamadhan hill to request Priyavrat, Lord Brahma knew that Prince Priyavrat would not accept his father's order. Brahma's purpose was to break Priyavrat's determination. Therefore, Brahma first looked upon Priyavrat with compassion. His smile and compassionate features also indicated that although Brahma would request Priyavrat to accept household life, Priyavrat would not be out of touch with devotional service. And this is the important point. By the blessings of a Vaishnava, everything is possible. This is described in Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu as Kripa Siddhi, or perfection attained simply by the blessings of a superior person. One usually becomes liberated and perfect by executing the regulative principles set down in the Shastras. Nonetheless, many persons have achieved perfection simply by the blessings of a spiritual master or superior. So Priyavrat was given instructions by Narada himself. So Narada, very powerful personality. And so not so easy now to convince Priyavrat to give up his brahmacharya and his devotional practices and take up the kingdom. So therefore Lord Brahma himself had to come with all his associates, as Prabhupada writes, because the matter was very serious. So just like if there's some serious matter, sometimes GBC has to come along with so many other people. So like that, this is Brahma. In one lecture, Prabhupada did say that the 12 Mahajans are like 12 GBCs. And Brahma is the chairman. So he himself directly came. And his smile and compassionate features also indicated that although Brahma would request Priyavrat to accept household life, Priyavrat would not be out of touch with devotional service. How is that possible? By the blessings that would be possible. And Prabhupada is quoting Nectar of Devotion. So if you remember in Nectar of Devotion, how one comes to the stage of Bhava Bhakti, there are two ways. What are they?
Sadhana.
Yes, sadhana. Yes, one is through sadhana bhakti and the other is kripa. Who is the example for someone who came to bhava and prema through sadhana? Narad Muni. Narad Muni is the example given. And then through kripa, causeless mercy, there are three ways. What are they? Yes, one is glances, second vachika, good wishes or blessings through words, and the third one is ridha, good wishes from the heart. So there are three ways by which one gets causeless mercy. One is glances, by glancing. Second is by words. And third is by good wishes from the heart. These are three ways by which one receives the causeless mercy of the Lord or the Vaishnava. And there are examples for each of them. So, in any case, you can go and revise that. But here, Brahmaji, here just by smile he's blessing. So of course it indicates that just by his glancing, by his good wishes from the heart, he's giving blessings to Priyavrata, assuring him that even though he may take up the kingdom, he will not be affected. His devotional service will not be affected. So he's giving those blessings. Simply by his compassionate smile, he's giving those blessings. And can you give some more examples of those who received such causeless mercy? Huh? Yes, one is Bali Maharaj. So Bali Maharaj is also the example of Kripa Siddha. He received blessings from Prahlad Maharaj, right. Who else?
Later of devotion, Srila Prabhupada talks about you dance the whole night.
Chandrakanti.
Chandrakanti.
Yeah, she is the example of somebody who came from Raganuga to Bhava. So also examples of Shukadeva Goswami, Prahlad Maharaj. So all these are the examples of devotees who have received causeless mercy. So that is the point here. But the important point Srila Prabhupada is writing here is how by the blessings of a Vaishnava everything is possible. And so therefore the blessings of a Vaishnava are very important. Mercy. So by the mercy of a Vaishnava, by the mercy of the Lord, even that which is impossible becomes impossible. The verse from the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Dushkaram Sukaram Bhavet. Even that which is impossible becomes possible by the mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And without his mercy, even that which is ordinarily possible will become impossible. So that is how we are so dependent on grace. So without that grace, nothing is possible. So if one thinks that by my own endeavor I can do things, one is likely to be frustrated. So especially the path of devotional service is the path of grace. And that is the big difference between the path of devotional service and the other paths like Jnana and Yoga. So on the other paths, they are trying to achieve perfection by their own endeavors. But how much ever they try, there's always possibility of failing. As Sanat Kumar says to Prithu Maharaj in his teachings, the famous verse, 4th canto, 22nd chapter, 39th verse. What was that? Yatpada pankaj balash vilasa bhaktya karmashayam gratitamugratayanti santaha tadvanna rikta matayo yatayo piruddha shroto ganastamaranam bhajavasudevam. So those who are rikta mataya, their mati is rikta. Rikta means empty. Why it's empty? There's no bhakti. So for such jnanis and yogis, even though yataya means what? They're making a lot of endeavor. Just like aruya krichrena. Krichrena means lot of endeavor. So even though they make lot of endeavor to become free from the karmashayam, all the material desires, the fruitive activities, fruitive desires, and ultimate, all arising from the false ego, they're trying to get rid of all of them, but still it is very difficult. Because the material desires are flowing like the unlimited waves of a river. Shroto ganastam. So therefore very, very difficult. And Prabhupada very often gave the example of who failed in spite of a lot of endeavors? Yes, Vishwamitra. And of course we also have Saubhari Muni. So a lot of endeavors, a lot of tapasya, but still they failed. Why? They simply try by their own endeavors, no mercy. But on the other hand, the path of devotional service is dependent on grace. Bhagavad Gita, 18th chapter, 58th verse. What is that? Mat chitta sarvadurgani mat prasadat tarishyasi. So mat prasadat. So Krishna said, by my mercy you will cross over all the obstacles, not by your own endeavors. So therefore, on the path of devotional service, trying to please the Lord and the Vaishnavas is very important. Otherwise, somebody thinks, by my own endeavors, I'll do my sadhana, I'll do service. It doesn't work that way. There's a well-known incident about the devotee who went to chant 64 rounds against the instructions of Srila Prabhupada and landed up at the petrol station. Not to distribute books. So, the point is, by one's own endeavors, it does not work. Just like some devotees, they go off, they leave ISKCON, join some other organization, take shelter of some other Baba, Bapu, someone, and think that by that process, by my endeavors, I will achieve perfection. No, it doesn't work that way. If one gives up one's bona fide initiating spiritual master and without his blessings goes somewhere else, one loses the blessings of the Vaishnava, how one can make progress? Not possible. One can go throughout the universe and try. It won't work. So that is what Srila Prabhupada is explaining here. By the blessings of the Vaishnava, everything is possible, and without the blessings, nothing is possible.
Actually, in this case of 64 roundup and landing at petrol station, so these we are able to see very tangibly and understand, okay, without the mercy of Guru, you cannot progress. But there are some cases where, especially the Ritwik's case, we don't see them landing. So how do we understand whether they are progressing, not progressing? Because they seem to be chanting, they seem to be experiencing ecstasy in the courts, giving up shelter of their spiritual master and going to the grandfather.
Well, whether they're progressing or not progressing, that Srila Prabhupada knows. We don't have to comment. But this is a very often asked question. And as far as the Shastra is concerned, we should have a very clear understanding of what is the actual meaning of progress. So, on the spiritual path, is progress increase in number of buildings? Is that progress? Oh, how many buildings are people are constructing here in Bangalore? What's the big deal? Or is it doing philanthropic activity? Is that progress? Is earning money a sign of progress? So what progress you're talking about? What's the progress?
They say that we are...
No, they can say anything. Now, what does Shastra say? What is the sign of progress?
It gets more taste, services.
Detachment from matter and detachment to Krishna.
Yes, that's the ultimate sign of progress. Detachment from material things, attachment to Krishna. And attachment to Krishna means attachment to the Vaishnava. And attachment to following the Guru's instructions. That is the sign of progress. That's what Shastra says. If you remember the conversation between, again, Sanat Kumar and Prithu Maharaj, there's that whole series of verses where Sanat Kumar is describing how to come to the perfection of achieving love of God. And there's one word that he uses over there. I'm forgetting the exact word, but it's equivalent to Acharya Upasana.
That's what they say that we are doing, others are not doing.
So everything has to be decided by Shastra, not what I think and you think. They can say so many things and think so many things. But what is Shastra saying?
Their main point is that the Acharya can change few things. So by the dictionary or by the Shastra, what we are doing may not be valid, but because we have the sanction of the Acharya, so we are doing it.
Okay. Anyway, we don't want to get into the ritual discussion. So we will get in. So to answer your question, we'll hear Brahma's words. And what Brahma says will answer your question. Because this is exactly what Brahma is speaking. Okay, 11th verse. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Nibodhatatitam Ridham Bravimi Masu Yutam Devamarasya Prem Aprameyam Vayam Bhavaste Tata Esha Maharshir Vaham Sarve Vivashayasya Dishtam. Right?
Lord Brahma, the Supreme Person within this universe, said, "My dear Priyavrata, kindly hear attentively what I shall say to you. Do not be jealous of the Supreme Lord, who is beyond our experimental.
He is beyond our experimental knowledge. He is immeasurable, aprameyam. So therefore, because he is immeasurable, because he is beyond our experimental knowledge, therefore we cannot understand him. So don't think him to be ordinary and be jealous. And he's saying that all of us, including Lord Shiva, your father, Priyavrata's father, who's he? Swayambhu Manu. And Narada, all of them have to carry out the order of the Supreme. We cannot deviate from his order. So Prabhupada writes, of the 12 great authorities in devotional service, 4, Lord Brahma himself, his son Narada, Swayambhu Manu and Lord Shiva were present before Priyavrata. 4 Mahajans were present to solve the issue. Such an important issue. Who is going to rule the universe? So not a small task. So therefore 4 Mahajans were present. And plus they were accompanied by many other authoritative sages. So Brahma first wanted to impress upon Priyavrata that although these great personalities were all authorities, they cannot possibly disobey the orders of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is described in this verse as Deva, which means always glorious. So no one can disobey the orders of the Supreme Lord. That's the essential point which Brahma is trying to impress upon Priyavrata. So you have to follow the orders of the Supreme, and I am the representative of the Supreme. That is what Brahma is trying to tell him. And so therefore you have to follow my instructions, because my instructions are as good as the instructions of the Supreme. Next paragraph. When Lord Brahma went to induce Priyavrata to accept the responsibility for ruling the universe, he did not go whimsically. He was following the dictations of the Supreme Lords. Indeed, Brahma and other genuine authorities never do anything without his permission. Then is quoting Tene Brahmaridha Ya Adi Kavaye. And then the next sentence, important one. The more a living entity is purified by devotional service, the more he comes in direct contact with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, as confirmed Bhagavad Gita, Tesham Satyuktanam Bhajatam Priti Purukam Dadami Buddhi Yogam Tam Yenamam Upayanti Te. The more a living entity is purified, the more he comes in direct contact with the Supreme Personality. So more one gets purified, the more one gets dictation from the Super Soul. And ultimately, all inspiration comes from the Super Soul. We have quoted that verse quite a few times. 4th canto, 30th chapter, 20th verse, where Srila Prabhupada very beautifully explains that how the inspiration comes from the Super Soul, and therefore there is nothing uninspiring for a highly advanced devotee. And there was, in that purport, Prabhupada quotes the same verse, Tesham Satyuktanam. And so therefore for the advanced devotee, nothing becomes hackneyed, boring. Why? Because Krishna reveals himself to such a devotee. And therefore everything appears to be new by the inspiration of the Lord. So therefore, for that purification is required. So there Prabhupada writes, therefore, for the sincere, unalloyed devotee, the Lord gives inspiration to whom? Sincere, unalloyed devotee. So that means the more the purification takes place, the more the Lord is pleased, the more He reveals Himself, then nothing appears to be uninspiring. That's how the devotee gets guidance. And so therefore, of course for everyone it's important, but definitely for those who are seniors, those who are in leadership positions, managerial positions, focusing on one's purification becomes all the more important. Because so much is dependent on inspiration. Because the Lord is in full control. Matta, Smriti, Jnanam, Apo. The Lord is in full control of remembrance, forgetfulness, knowledge. So we may think, no, I'll memorize everything. I've got nice memory power and I'll remember everything. But we all have experience, right? How much of one studies, ultimately one sits for the exam, then what happens? So what one has read the previous night, one forgets. What one has read 10 days before, one remembers. Does it happen or no? So who's in control? You know the famous pastime of Tamal Krishna Maharaj and the key? No? Give to Charu Prabhu, give the mic there. He's very enthusiastic.
Don't remember completely how much.
What, to remember the pastime also you have to depend on Krishna.
So Srila Prabhupada used to carry a suitcase or box.
Briefcase, small
Briefcase.
briefcase. Mm.
So in which all the important documents, checks, everything will be there. So important documents, cash, everything Prabhupada would keep in a locker. So in the temple, so which has one more locker inside. And that key is always with Prabhupada only. And one time Prabhupada got severe health issue in Juhu temple. And Prabhupada requested to get the key. So
He had given the key to Tamal
Tamal
Krishna.
Krishna. And one day he requested, and Tamal Krishna forgot where the keys. And Prabhupada just tell him, and he searched whole temple, but he couldn't find it.
Then what happened?
Then he got the new key.
No, there is a much more interesting part in between. So Tamal Krishna Maharaj searched and searched the whole Hare Krishna land. He could not find. He was so nervous, so much of anxiety. Just imagine the most important key of Srila Prabhupada is missing. There was so much of anxiety. But what to do? So finally he had to go and tell Srila Prabhupada, I can't find the key. And Prabhupada was just lying on his bed and Prabhupada just said, call the GVC.
Why was Srila Prabhupada calling GVC?
So then he thought maybe one GBC member. So he asked, which GBC? The entire GBC body. So embarrassing. Ah. Just like here, you see 4 Mahajans had to come for this issue. Why? Very serious. So Prabhupada wanted to impress upon him how serious the matter is, that he has lost the key, the most important key. That's why he's saying. So he wanted to tell him, you've done a big blunder. That's what he wanted to tell him. So anyway, the point is that we are so much dependent on the Lord's grace. So if we don't get the right inspiration at the right time, then we can make wrong decisions. And if somebody is in leadership position, one wrong decision could influence so many others. So therefore, sometimes managers and leaders feel that, oh, we are too busy to have to give time to sadhana and our chanting. So, well, anyway, we are leaders. We are not accountable to anyone, right? So fine. That's what happens sometimes. And so then they tend to compromise. And when they compromise, so many problems. Why? Because that's what Krishna's Kaviraj Goswami is saying. Without the mercy, what happens? That which is very easily possible will also become impossible, very difficult. Then it becomes a vicious circle. More problems, then more time to solve the problems, and less time for sadhana. Then what happens? Situation becomes only worse and worse. So therefore, these points have to be taken into consideration. So further down Prabhupada is writing, Lord Brahma therefore had not come to Priyavrat by his own whims. Rather, it is understood that he had been ordered to persuade Priyavrat by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, whose activities cannot be understood by material senses and who is therefore described herein as aprameya. Thus, Lord Brahma first advised Priyavrat to hear his words with attention and without envy. So when there is no envy, then one will hear with attention. As soon as there is envy, one will think, why should I listen to this person? That is why Lord Krishna also tells Arjuna, you are qualified to hear this Bhagavad Gita because you are anasuya, non-envious. Because only when one is non-envious, one will hear. As soon as one is envious of some person, why will one hear the person to whom one is envious? Not possible. Therefore, Lord Brahma is first saying, give up your envy and hear with attention. Why one is induced to perform certain acts despite his desire to do something else is indicated herein. One cannot disobey the orders of the Supreme Lord even if one is as powerful as Lord Shiva, Lord Brahma, Manu or the great sage Narada. All these authorities are certainly very powerful, but they do not have the power to disobey the orders of the Supreme Personality of God. Since Lord Brahma had come to Priyavrat in accordance with the orders of the Supreme Lord, he first wanted to dispel any suspicions that he might be acting as Priyavrat's enemy. Okay, so Priyavrat might think this Brahma is my enemy, therefore he wants me to do something else. So therefore he is saying, no, give up your envy. Lord Brahma was following the orders of the Supreme Lord, and therefore it would be worthwhile for Priyavrat to accept Lord Brahma's order as the Lord desires. So now this is the essence of all what Brahma is going to speak now. But that same principle he is trying to explain in different ways. Okay, 12th verse. Natasya karshe tapasa vidyaya va na yoga viryena manasiya va naivarta dharme paratasvato va kritam vihantum tanubhrit vibhuyat.
One cannot avoid the order of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, not by the strength of severe austerities and exalted Vedic education, or the power of mystic yoga, physical prowess, or intellectual activities. Nor can one use his power of religion, his material opulence, or any other means, either by himself or with the help of others, to defy the orders of the Supreme Lord. That is not possible for any living being, from Brahma down to the ant.
Yes. So there's no way one can disobey the order of the Supreme Lord. Not by one's tapasa, vidyaya, yoga, viryena, manishaya, or by artha, dharmai, parataha, swataha. No way one can avoid the order of the Supreme Lord. Full control. One is not independent. From Brahma down to the ants. Prabhupada's beginning is purported by quoting from the Garga Upanishad, where Garga Muni says to his wife, Etasya va aksharasya prashasane gargi surya chandramasau vidritau tishtata. My dear Gargi, everything is under the control of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Even the sun, moon, and other controllers and demigods like Lord Brahma and King Indra are all under his control. Just like Lord Kapila in the third canto. What he said?
Atal bhashayate suryo.
Ah.
Atal bhashayate suryo nashashanko na pavaka.
This is Bhagavad Gita verse. Ah.
Madhvayadvati vataya.
Yes. Yes. So the sun is glowing because of the power of the Supreme Lord. The wind is blowing. Everything is under control of the Supreme Lord. Srila Prabhupada in his morning walks on the Pacific Ocean, he says, just see this ocean. We are freely walking on the beach. Why? Because we are 100% sure that this ocean will not cross the limit. So there's somebody in control. So therefore, nobody can avoid that control. Further on, Prabhupada is writing, quoting Bhagavad Gita, Mam Maya Duratyaya. Sometimes we are proud of our austerities, penances, mystic yogic powers, but it's clearly stated herein that one cannot surpass the laws and directions of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, either by dint of mystic power, the scientific education, or austerities and penances. It is impossible. Impossible. The word Manishaya, by intelligence of special significance, Priyavrat might argue that Lord Brahma was requesting him to accept family life and the responsibility for ruling a kingdom. And although Narad Muni advised him not to enter household life and be entangled in material affairs, whom to accept would be a puzzle for Priyavrat, because Lord Brahma and Narad Muni are authorities, both are Mahajans. Under the circumstances, the use of the word Manishaya is very appropriate, for it indicates that since both Narad Muni and Lord Brahma are authorized to give instruction, Priyavrat should neglect neither of them, but should use his intelligence to follow the advice of both. To solve such dilemmas, Srila Rupa Goswami has given a very clear conception of intelligence. Anasakta se Vishyan yatharam upayunjata nirbandha Krishna sambandhe yuktam vairagi muchyate. Vishayan material affairs should be accepted without attachment, and everything should be dovetailed with the service of the Lord. That is real intelligence, Manisha. Becoming a family man or a king in the material world is not harmful if one accepts everything for Krishna's service. That necessitates clear intelligence. So which is the other pastime where a devotee was put in a situation of dilemma like this?
Arjuna.
When?
Ashwatthama.
Yes, in the case of Ashwatthama. So there two people were giving two contradictory opinions. Who? Yes, Yudhishthira and Draupadi were on one side, and they were saying, don't kill. And on the other side were Bhima and Krishna. Both of them were saying kill. And of course, Krishna was sort of in between. And Krishna said you have to satisfy both the parties. So, how can two parties be satisfied who are giving contradictory opinions? So, there it is mentioned that how Arjuna solved the problem? By using his intelligence. So, by using his spiritual intelligence, he could satisfy both the parties. So, same principle here also. By using intelligence, but this intelligence is not material intelligence. So, ultimately, the Supreme Lord has to inspire one to get the right intelligence. Then one can make the right decisions. Because that's the nature of the world. At so many times we are faced with such dilemmas, right? Should I do this or should I do this? Should I do this? Should I do this? Many times we have. Then what decision one is going to make, that depends upon intelligence. And if Krishna decides to give the wrong intelligence, then what will happen? I think so. Before we told that incident about the devotee who was cooking on Ekadashi. Everyone knows that incident? Peter?
Depend on Krishna to answer. So there was some program going on, many people had come.
Not just people.
Many devotees and many senior devotees, leaders had come. And it was Ekadashi, and then by mistake the cooking team, the person who was leading the cooking, he added mutton in the Ekadashi preparation. And then as and when he realized it, it was already late. So he came out running and discussed with everybody what needs to be done. But it was so late that nothing else was possible at that time. So without the mercy of Krishna, even the smallest of services are not possible.
Okay, thank you. But just to give a little more details. So so there was this cook, the main cook who was cooking the Ekadashi sabji. And so Ekadashi sabji, because you can't add turmeric or anything else, it doesn't look so colorful. So anyways, the main cook who was cooking, he had to go out to bring something. He told his assistant to keep stirring. So the assistant was stirring and the assistant thought, oh, this sabji is not looking colorful at all. Prasadam should look good also, na? If it looks good, then it inspires one to taste. So he thought something should be added. So he opened the refrigerator and he saw huge quantity of peas, green peas. And he was very happy to see, he took the whole quantity of green peas and put in the sabji. And was very happy, now very colorful. And then after some time, the main cook came back and he saw the sabji and he said, what is this? What you have added? He said, I put peas. He said, don't you know today is Ekadashi? He said, so what? So what? No peas on Ekadashi. No, it said no grains, no beans. Where it is said no peas. So anyway, what could be done? It was too late. So then the only thing that could be done is, so when the prasadam was going to be served, this main cook took the mic and he made an announcement that today when the sabji is being served, kindly pick out the green peas and keep them aside. That's the only thing he could do. So the point is, one could be the most expert cook, but when Krishna inspires the assistant to put green peas, what can be done? What can be done? One may say, I'm the most expert cook. That's okay. But Krishna inspired the assistant to put green peas on the round day. So even the most expert cook can be humbled like that in a few moments. Doesn't take too long. So therefore, intelligence has to be inspired by Krishna to do the right things. Then it becomes Yukta Vairagya. Intelligence used in Krishna's service. So for that one must have the right desire to use the intelligence in Krishna's service. Then Krishna will give the right type of intelligence. So here also, Priyavrat, difficult situation for him, but then he's supposed to now use his intelligence to make the right decision. So further down, Prabhupada is saying, Prabhupada is defeating the Mayavad theory of Brahma, Satya, Jagan, Mithya. We're not getting into that. Further down, Prabhupada is saying that which is created by the Supreme Personality of God cannot be false, but using it for enjoyment is. So that's the refutation of the Brahma, Satya, Jagan, Mithya. Everything is meant to be enjoyed by the Supreme Personality of God, and then is quoting Bhoktaram Yakita Prasam. Okay, 13. Yes, Prabhu.
So, from this verse, it indicates that there are instructions. Finally, it boils down to the one's intelligence. And there's a contradictory instruction. So, it appears that in any situation, he will be able to follow one instruction, not the other. So then there is a disobeying from the other things, even though he is using his intelligence. So now, Priyavrata, they are elevated personalities from the level of our level here. So when we use our intelligence is not purified to take a decision when we have contradictory instructions. So how do we take that as an application for us at our level?
So just like in the case of Arjuna, he used his God-given intelligence and made the right decision to satisfy both the parties, correct? It's not that Arjuna satisfied one party and dissatisfied. No, he satisfied both the parties. Okay, sometimes it may not be possible to satisfy both parties. But in any case, as you rightly said, that our intelligence may be contaminated, not so purified to make the right decisions. So then we have to, first of all, take help of those whose intelligence is more purified.
That also requires intelligence.
Yes, that's correct. So ultimately, who's going to give that? Yes, dadami buddhi yogam tam. Ultimately, we are dependent on Krishna. That's the ultimate part. So Krishna has to give the intelligence. Okay, you have a problem, go to this person. Krishna has to give that intelligence. Then one will go to that person, the right person, take guidance, and then Krishna has to give that person the intelligence to give the right guidance. That's how we are so dependent. What is our intelligence? Very insignificant. So therefore, that is why Krishna is speaking all those verses in Bhagavad Gita. Buddhi buddhimatam asmi tejas tejas vinamaham balam balavatam chaham. So Krishna is saying, I am only giving buddhi also. So therefore, ultimately, the Shastra again and again describes these points so that we become humble and become Krishna conscious. What does it mean to become Krishna conscious? Being conscious of Krishna at every moment. So when we understand that how dependent we are on Krishna, that's how we'll become Krishna conscious, right? And that's what we have to understand. I can't do anything on my own. I'm so dependent on Krishna. I can't do anything without His mercy. So it's true. Krishna has to give the intelligence to direct us to the right person, to get the right guidance. Somebody else has something to say. If somebody is envious, if one person is envious of another person and that person is giving instruction, do you think I'll be inspired to follow? No. So therefore, first of all, he's saying don't be jealous, because if you're jealous, you can't follow. Whether he's jealous or not, that's another point. But he's just clarifying the point that don't be jealous, because there's always possibility, right? There's always possibility. In the material world, every living entity is jealous of the Supreme Law. That's why one is in the material world. So there's always possibility there could be some jealousy and envy. So first of all, he's saying, you keep aside your jealousy and hear my instructions, because I'm representative of Supreme Law. Okay?
So that brings another thing that Lord Brahmaji is putting so much of endeavor to convince Priyavrata. But in the past, already 4 Kumaras did not listen to him to this. So it appears that they were enemies of Krishna. And from this, it appears that they are enemies. But how do you understand that?
Right. So there, if you remember the purport that Srila Prabhupada has given there, Srila Prabhupada says that this is one situation where one can disobey the orders of the superior.
They need
So their motivation in the order of Brahma was very clear. Of course, they also wanted to make spiritual progress, and Priyavrata also wants to make spiritual progress. Right? But they are disobeying the orders of Brahma was bona fide. Priyavrata disobeying the order is not bona fide. Not so easy. But the point is that here this is emergency situation of Swayambhu Manu. No ruler. There, of course, there the creation had just begun, the 4 Kumaras were created, and Brahma had potential to create many more. So there it didn't seem to be a very great problem. But here there was a crisis. And so the problem here was more severe. But in any case, the point still remains that it's not so easy to figure out all these things. And therefore, we have this famous verse of Bhishma Dev. 1st Canto 9th chapter 16th verse. Okay, somebody can read? You can see that? It's too small, I think, right? Or somebody can open from the Vedabase and read.
The bewilderment of Maharaj Yudhishthira over his past sinful acts.
What are you reading? Okay, you read the verse in the translation also.
O King, no one can know the plan of the Lord Sri Krishna. Even though great philosophers inquire exhaustively, they are bewildered. Purport. The bewilderment of Maharaj Yudhishthira over his past sinful acts and the resultant sufferings is completely negated by the great authority Bhishma, one of the 12 authorized persons. Bhishma wanted to impress upon Maharaj Yudhishthira that since time immemorial, no one, including such demigods as Shiva and Brahma, could ascertain the real plan of the Lord. So what can we understand about it? It is useless also to inquire about it. Even the exhaustive philosophical inquiries of sages cannot ascertain the plan of the Lord. The best policy is simply to abide by the orders of the Lord without argument. The sufferings of the Pandavas were never due to their past deeds. The Lord helped to execute the plan of establishing the kingdom of virtue, and therefore his own devotees suffered temporarily in order to establish the conquest of virtue. Bhishmadev was certainly satisfied by seeing the triumph of virtue, and he was glad to see King Yudhishthira on the throne, although he himself fought against him. Even a great fighter like Bhishma could not win the battle of Kurukshetra, because the Lord wanted to show that wise cannot conquer virtue, regardless of who tries to execute it. Bhishmadev was a great devotee of the Lord, but who chose to fight against the Pandavas by the will of the Lord, because the Lord wanted to show that a fighter like Bhishma cannot win on the wrong side.
So even the greatest of philosophers cannot understand the plan of the Lord? Not so easy to understand. Yes, that Bhagavad Gita, Krishna saying that. And therefore, even the exhaustive philosophical inquiries of sages cannot ascertain the plan of the Lord. The best policy is, this is a solution. Solution is giving. What is the solution? The best policy is simply to abide by the orders of the Lord without arguments. That is the best policy. No arguments. So, Vishwanath Thakur gives a little more details on this verse. And he says that, the greatest of philosophers cannot understand the plan of the Lord. But for the Pandavas, for Yudhishthira Maharaj, the Lord was right in front of them, correct? The Lord was there right in front. So they can ask him directly, no? What's your plan? So he says that even if they would ask the Lord directly, the Lord would tell them something so confusing they will never be able to understand. Not so easy to understand. And therefore, that is what the Lord wants to inspire. He wants to inspire surrender. And that is why, ultimately, so many times we are put into situations where it becomes very difficult to understand exactly what is to be done. And ultimately one is supposed to surrender. And that is what the Lord actually wants. Just like at the beginning of the battle, Arjuna was giving so many valid arguments, Shastric arguments. They were not some whimsical arguments. They were all Shastric arguments, which Arjuna gave, correct? But still, finally, he could not figure out exactly what is to be done. So, understanding what is the plan of the Lord is not so easy. Therefore, Brahmaji is saying, simply by using one's, on the basis of one's tapasya, on the basis of yogic powers or some material intelligence, one cannot understand. So therefore, one has to come to the conclusion that I am helpless without the Lord's grace. And if one is thinking that I have some ability of my own, one is likely to be humbled. Yes.
Yes, sir.
Mm. Mm.
Maharaj was the counsel of Naraji.
Counseling?
Means he had told everything. So the question, Prabhu, Brahma is even on a higher leadership position, so he's the super counselor for Prabhupada. So should he have not gone to Narada first that I'm going to speak, and then because he's going to give the contradicted instruction to Prabhupada Maharaj. So as I'm asking in terms of practical application of like how, because something similar may come.
So we cannot impose all these rules and regulations on Brahma. In our situations, all these rules, regulations, etiquettes, all these matter. But in the case of Brahma, you cannot impose them on Brahma. Therefore, Brahma, first of all, is saying, I am representative of Supreme Lord and I am presenting his plan. Then where is the question of argument here? Brahma is directly delivering the plan of the Supreme Lord directly as it is. So that means what? That means everyone is, therefore right in the beginning what he is saying? He is saying all of us, including myself, Narada, Swayambhu Manu, Lord Shiva, all of us have to follow the plan of the Supreme Lord. That is why he is clarifying right in the beginning. And I am coming and presenting whose plan? His plan. So therefore, where is the question of Narada interfering? Therefore, first only he is saying, Narada also has to follow the Lord's plan. But at our level, who can so confidently say, I am presenting Lord's plan? Who can say so confidently? So therefore, for us, then all these etiquettes and rules, regulations, okay, you consult this one, that one, all these things matter. But Brahma is not on our position. So therefore, he is on a different level.
Can I ask a question? It's practical. So once I was asked the question that we understood with ISKCON that we have to follow the senior person or instruction. Now he said that the senior person itself has his own conditioning. Correct. And he gives instruction according to his liking and his disliking. That may not like to me. So, in that case, fulfilling his desire may not be aligning with my desire. So will that be, so how do you go ahead? That was the question that was asked. So fulfilling the instruction of the spiritual master, but the senior devotees.
So, okay, so everyone has faults, everyone has defects. So then I think, okay, my spiritual authorities give me some instruction, but he's also defective. So his instruction is also defective. Then whom to follow? My mind. Best policy. So what is the option? What is the option I have?
By following the process, Krishna likes it.
That's a good point. By following the process, Krishna likes it. Which process?
Following the sequence, maybe condition.
Correct. So, if I am in a subordinate position, I don't have options, right? Of course, therefore there is Tadvidi Pranipatena, and in that purport Srila Prabhupada is also written, blind following, upset inquiries are condemned. So if the superior is giving an instruction which is totally against Guru and Shastra, Guru Sadhu Shastra, then definitely I have every right to consult some other Vaishnavas and figure out whether this instruction should be followed or not. But some degree of faith has to be there, isn't it? Otherwise, for everything, if I question, then how can things move? So therefore, Srila Prabhupada has started this management system here within ISKCON. And Srila Prabhupada was quite firm and emphatic about people following that system. Because organization cannot run without that system, isn't it? You go to any organization, there is a hierarchy, there are superiors, there are subordinates, and when people work according to that hierarchy, then the institution makes some progress. Otherwise, without following that system, then where's the question of progress? So therefore, because Srila Prabhupada has started that system, therefore one has to have faith in that system. And by following the system, then one attracts the mercy of the Acharya. Because it is not my system or your system, it is the Acharya system. And that is what Srila Prabhupada has directly written in the CC purport regarding the Gaudiya Math. They didn't follow the system set up by their spiritual master. Then what happened? Srila Prabhupada has written very openly and boldly that the entire Gaudiya Math has become asar. Asar. No sar. No essence. The essence was lost because they didn't follow the instruction. So therefore, same thing within our institution also. So Srila Prabhupada has openly said the GBC is the ultimate managing authority. So one has to accept that and follow that. So by following that, I make progress. So if one thinks, no, I'm more intelligent, this fellow, he's junior to me or whatever, he's less intelligent, I have so many academic qualifications, this fellow is illiterate or whatever. So if one has all those conceptions and one does not follow, then one's own spiritual life is at stake. Because one does not get the mercy of the Acharya and one is depending upon material qualifications. So therefore, management within ISKCON is not simply some material activity. It is a spiritual society. The system has been set up by the Acharya. So therefore one needs to follow in order to attract the grace of the Acharya. So yes, so therefore, when it comes to, so those who are in authoritative positions, senior positions, then it is their duty to see that they are giving proper instructions according to Guru, Sadhu and Shastra. That is their responsibility. So that is what Brahmaji is saying. Ultimately, nobody is independent. So the senior cannot think that, oh, I am independent authority, I can give any whimsical instructions. No, he is not independent. He is also under somebody else. The members of the GBC, they cannot think that they are independent. They are also under the authority of Srila Prabhupada. So that is parampara. Ultimately, everyone has to follow the Supreme Lord. That is why we were making that point. So then the superiors, they, in order to give the correct decisions, they have to understand that they are dependent on the Supreme Lord and therefore purify themselves so that they are in connection with the Supreme Lord. So nobody can act whimsically. That is the whole point. So everyone has to feel responsible for what they are doing. And those who are in subordinate position should put some faith in their authorities and move ahead, unless it is too much in violation of Guru, Sadhu and Shastra. Otherwise, if the in charge of a center or temple is instructing the cook, okay, today cook this and this, and the cook says, no, but I don't like this, I want to cook something else. A big problem will be there. Every time if somebody, for every small thing one disagrees, a big problem will be there. How the institution will go ahead? Therefore, Prabhupada started the system and everyone has to cooperate with the system. Whether one likes it or not, that's the meaning of cooperation. Every time I may not like the instruction, but still I need to follow. That is the meaning of cooperation. That's how one will attract the mercy of Guru and Krishna, and that's how the institution will progress. So I had this incident recently. It's a little quite gross, but anyway, it was spoken quite openly in a Bhagavatam class in some temple. So once it seems the wife of a temple president in some temple was cooking meat and eating in the temple. No, outside India. During Prabhupada's time.
Offering also.
You can decide that.
There is a letter which says unofferable things are going on.
So then when the matter came to Srila Prabhupada, so some other senior devotee, he went and told Srila Prabhupada that this is what is happening, and none of the devotees want to speak about it because they have a lot of respect for their temple president. So therefore, out of respect, they don't want to speak about it. So when the matter came to Srila Prabhupada said, well, as far as the general devotees are concerned, it's a good attitude that they have a respect for their temple president, that's good. But then as far as other senior devotees are concerned, they should have brought the matter to me. Why they did not bring up the matter to me? So that was Srila Prabhupada's response to that. So the point is that that's what Srila Prabhupada expected. Srila Prabhupada expected, in general, Srila Prabhupada expected that the junior devotees have respect for their superiors and they follow. That then things will go smoothly. But then when things are in gross violation of Guru, Sadhu and Shastra, then definitely things have to be brought up to the higher authorities and appropriate consultation has to be done. So just like when one of the sannyasis in our movement was doing some immoral activities, and it came to the notice of some of the disciples. So most of the disciples thought, well, he's our spiritual master, how can we speak anything against it? But then the result of that was that that sannyasi fell down. And so then when they did the post-mortem on the issue, then the senior leaders said, the disciples should have at least brought it to the notice of higher authorities. Then at least maybe we could have saved the situation at the right time. So all these points have to be taken into consideration. And therefore it requires intelligence.
Necessitates.
But that is God-given intelligence. Therefore, spiritual life, chant and be happy. But not so easy. And therefore, practically every devotee at a certain point of time will be forced to come to that realization, I am helpless. I am dependent on the mercy of the Supreme Lord. And that's exactly what Krishna wants. To bring about that helpless situation where a devotee is forced to surrender. So, as we were discussing yesterday, and hopefully you read those verses which we told you to read. So if you have read that, then throughout that we see that how Krishna, he orchestrates situations in lives of devotees where one is forced to accept that I am helpless. That is what Krishna does. And therefore, Krishna plans situations, Krishna gives miseries, Krishna gives so many challenging situations, so many things Krishna does. Then one is forced to come to that realization. So therefore, the important question is whether the Ritviks are following the plan of the Supreme Lord. That's a big question.
Prabhupada was asked, are you a perfect man? He said, no, I'm not perfect. I follow the perfect person.
Yes, that's right. So that's what we need to follow. If you think that I'm intelligent and I can do things, I know Krishna's plan perfect, then very dangerous situation. Okay, fine, we'll take a break and continue. Hare Krishna.
Because anyway, we have years communication is happening every day. So we have to same tempo. It increases to one place.
So even with 5 days,
Next time.
we do not have a lot of multiple.
I was thinking the other option of if nothing works out. Then just like if land is the thing, land is portal. Within some postal, just small right?
We want to create the
We have Krishna Karnamuru.
First class, class.
There is some scope of
But I was still more missionary. And you also the point
What they want to do now from
Let us start with how that was.
Okay, let's continue. Our plan is to try and finish this chapter today. Of course, this is the most important part of the chapter. Okay, text 13. Bhavaya nashaya cha karma kartum shokaya mohaya sada bhayaya sukaya dukkhaya cha deha yogam avyastadishtam janatanga datte. My dear Priyavrat, by the order of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, all living entities accept different types of bodies for birth and death, activity, lamentation, illusion, fear of future dangers, and happiness and distress. So the rest of the verses, basically Brahma is trying to show Priyavrat that how the Supreme Lord is controlling everything, how we are in full control. That's what he is trying to tell him. As Prabhupada writes in the purport, every living entity who has come to this material world has come here for material enjoyment. But according to his own karma activities, he must accept certain type of body given to him by middle age and all the Supreme Personality of God. Okay. Further down, Prabhupada writes, the fact is that all these bodies are ordained for the living entities by the Supreme Personality of Godhead according to the living entities' desires. He gives the living entities freedom to act as they like, but on the other hand, they must accept a body according to the reactions of their activities. Thus, there are different types of bodies. So, according to karma, karmana deva netrena jantu deho bhavati. So, one is forced to accept a particular type of body. And then he's quoting Sarvasya Amriti Sanvishta. And further down he says, the truth is that every living entity has a certain desire, and the Supreme Lord gives him a chance to fulfill it. The best course, therefore, is to surrender unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead and act according to his desire. One who does so is liberated. So one who acts according to the Lord's desire is on the liberated platform, even though he may not be liberated. But as long as he is acting according to the Lord's desire and the Lord's instructions, he is to be considered to be on the liberated platform. Prabhupada explains this in other purports also. Okay, 14. Yadvachitantyam gunakarma dhamabhi sudustarer vatsavayam suyojitaha sarve mahamo balimishwaraya prota nasiva dvipade chatuspadaha. Please read.
My dear boy, all of us are bound by the Vedic injunctions of the divisions of Varnashrama according to our qualities and work. These divisions are difficult to avoid because they are scientifically arranged. We must therefore carry out our duties of Varnashrama Dharma like bulls obliged to move according to the direction of a driver pulling on the ropes knotted to their noses.
So this analogy is given in so many places throughout the Bhagavatam. The bull that is pulled by the ropes. So in the same way, everyone is forced to follow the injunctions of the Shastra. So why this analogy is given? Why this analogy is very frequently given? The bull tied by the rope?
Because of little independence.
Huh?
We have little independence, but we are fully.
Okay, there's some little independence but not full independence.
However powerful is that, with that little things you can be controlled.
Yes, so the point is that the bull, because the rope is going through the nose, when the person pulls on the rope, what happens? Yes, there is pain, and therefore he is forced to follow. So similarly, if one does not follow, there is going to be pain. Ya shastra vidam utsrijya vartate kamakarata nasasiddhim avap no sukham, no happiness. Then what, if there's no happiness, then what will be there? Pain, distress. So, and na paramgati. So that is what will happen. So therefore everyone has to follow the instructions of the Shastra. The Varnashram system is again according to Shastra. So one has to follow the various injunctions of the Varnashram system, which is ultimately meant to satisfy Vishnu. Prabhupada is quoting from the Vishnu Puran. Varnashramacharvita purushena parapuman Vishnu raradhyati banta nanyatatoshakaranam. All of human society is meant to worship Lord Vishnu. At the present moment, however, human society does not know that this is the ultimate goal or perfection of life. Therefore, instead of worshipping Lord Vishnu, people have been educated to worship matter. Okay. It is best, therefore, to accept the injunctions of the Vedas, which are mentioned in this verse as Yad Vachi. So everyone has to follow the injunctions. And then, if the Vedic injunctions are followed, all of them, Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas and Shudras, will be elevated to the transcendental platform and their lives will be successful. The injunctions in the Vedas are explicit directions from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The example cited in this verse is that bulls tied by ropes in their nostrils move according to the direction of the driver. Similarly, if we move according to the instruction of the Vedas, the perfect path for our lives will be set. Otherwise, if we do not move in that way, but act according to our whimsical ideas, our lives will be spoiled by confusion and will end in despair. That's what happens. We must therefore accept this instruction by Lord Brahma to Priyavrat as the factual, scientific direction leading to success of life. And then Prabhupada is quoting the same verse, Yashastra with demonstration. 15. Isha visrishtam hiyavarun mahinga dukam sukam va gunakarma sangat asthaya tattad yadayunta nathash chakshush matandha ivaniyamanaha.
My dear Prabhuji, according to our association with the different modes of material nature, the Supreme Personality of Godhead gives us our specific bodies and the happiness and distress we achieve. One must therefore remain situated as he is and be conducted by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, exactly as blind man is led by a person who has eyes with which to see.
So here is giving a nice analogy. How one must follow the Supreme Lord? Exactly as a blind man is led by a person who has eyes. Chakshushmata. Chakshushmata andha iva. So very beautiful analogies Brahmaji is giving here. And Prabhupada explains. So he's explaining how in every bodily form there's a certain amount of happiness and distress. This we cannot change. This we cannot change. For happiness and distress are ordained by the Supreme Personality of Godhead in accordance with whose decision we have received our bodies. Since we cannot avoid the plan of the Supreme Godhead, we must agree to be directed by Him, just as a blind man is led by a person who has eyes. Under any circumstances, if we remain in the condition allotted to us by the Supreme Lord and follow His instructions, we will become perfect. The main purpose of life is to follow the instructions of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It is such instructions that constitutes one's religion or occupational duty. So very appropriate analogy Brahma is giving. So just like the blind man is following somebody who has eyes, and if every time he's going to question, why are you going this way? Why are you going that way? So what the person with eyes, what will he say? He says, but I have eyes, I can see where I'm going. Why are you asking so many questions? So the point is what? Some faith is required. No? Some faith is required. Okay, I am blind. This person has eyes and he's going to take me on the right path. So if that faith is not there, then all the time he'll ask so many questions. Very difficult then. So similarly, we are also blind. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya. So we are born blind in the darkness of ignorance. So we have to accept that. So if we accept that, then we will follow. If we don't accept, then every time we'll question, why this, why that, why like this, why like that? No, the Supreme Lord has given all these instructions. So do we know more than him? So therefore that faith is required. Therefore faith plays an important role, as Krishna has spoken in the 9th chapter, 3rd verse of the Bhagavad Gita.
Prabhuji, so this verse can be used in a destructive way also.
Yes, everything can be used in destructive way. Why only this verse?
This can be used to promote blind following. That you don't ask questions. You don't know what is. You just follow it.
Yes. So every verse can be misused. Why only this verse? If somebody wants to misuse, everything can be misused. And therefore Srila Prabhupada said, Krishna gives intelligence to the atheist to write volumes of books denying his existence. So if somebody has a desire to misuse, Krishna will give the intelligence to misuse. Desire, based on desire, Krishna gives intelligence. So that's what the Mayavadis do, right? The Mayavadis take the same verses and what they do? They use them according to their philosophy. So any verse can be misused. And so therefore we find everyone has got their quotes to prove their philosophy. Everyone has got their quotes, and they're all bona fide quotes. Not unbona fide. Properly from Shastra they'll pick out quotes. Therefore, one has to understand the subject matter from a holistic viewpoint and not pull things out of context. That is what people do many times, even within our society sometimes. People pull things out of context and misuse. So okay, one can misuse like that, but then we have quoted already Prabhupada's statement that blind following is condemned. Then how do you answer that? So therefore things have to be properly understood from all different perspectives, not pull things out of context. So yes, now here especially in this verse it is perfect. Why? Here this analogy is perfect in this context. Why?
We don't have special reason to follow the one who acts.
Because here Brahma is not talking about a conditioned soul. Here he is talking about the Supreme Lord himself. Correct? Isha Abhisrishtam. This is about Isha, the Supreme Lord. So therefore, here what he is talking about is, one must therefore remain situated as he is and be conducted by the Supreme Personality of God exactly as a blind man. So here he is talking about the Supreme Lord. So Supreme Lord cannot be wrong, right? So if Supreme Lord personally comes and gives instructions, will we question? Well, if somebody wants, he can. That free will is always there.
What if in the Arjuna's case, Supreme Lord wants to highlight the intelligence of his devotees? He may be giving a wrong instruction. Seemingly wrong.
Well, that's another case. But the point is, when the Supreme Lord directly is giving instructions, then even if one blindly follows it, it's going to be perfect, right? When the Supreme Lord is directly giving instructions. So that is why what Brahma is saying is perfect. That analogy is perfect in this connection because he is talking about instructions given by the Supreme Lord. Alright? You have some other counter argument?
You can, it's like, so this is Supreme Lord, so no condition. But the people, when conditioned soul, when we follow, so blind following is not required. So we have
Yes.
to understand and then.
Exactly. That's correct. Yes.
Again, I utilize intelligence.
So therefore, then Prabhupada is quoting Sarvadharman Parityajya, and therefore he says this process of surrendering by following the instructions of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is not meant for any particular caste or creed. A Brahmana can surrender, and so can a Kshatriya, Vaishya, or Shudra. Everyone can adopt this process. One should see, Prabhupada is clarifying. Chakshushmatanda iva niyamanaha. One should follow the Lord the way a blind man follows a person's eyes. So here he's specifically referring to the Lord. If we follow the Supreme Personality of Godhead, by following the directions he gives in the Vedas and Bhagavad Gita, life will be successful. If anyone from any division of life surrenders to the Supreme Personality of God and follows his instructions, his life will be successful. And then Prabhupada is once again bringing the previous analogy, the analogy of the bulls moving under the direction of the driver of a bullock cart. The bulls being completely surrendered to the driver remain wherever he wants to place them and eat whatever he wants them to eat. Similarly, being completely surrendered to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, we should not aspire for happiness or regret distress. We must be satisfied with the position allotted to us by the Lord. We should follow the path of devotional service and not be dissatisfied with the happiness and distress he has given. So if one is dissatisfied, one will try to change one's position, change situation, try to change so many things, but ultimately happiness and distress is given by the Supreme Lord is going to remain fixed. So one can think, okay, Bangalore is a very congested city, so many this problem, that problem. Okay, go to New York. And just an example. Or even better, go to the moon. But wherever one goes, the happiness and distress is going to follow because it's all directed by the Supreme Lord.
Karma will follow.
Huh?
Karma will follow.
Yes, karma will follow. Now, towards the end of the purport, after the Harinama verse, Prabhupada writes, everyone should be given the chance to hear the holy names of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but thus one will gradually come to understand his real position in life and be elevated to the transcendental position above the mode of goodness. Thus, all impediments to his progress will be cut to pieces. In conclusion, therefore, we must, so this is the conclusion of the whole discussion. In conclusion, therefore, we must be satisfied. We already had a whole discussion on satisfaction yesterday. We must be satisfied in whatever position we have been put into by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and we should try to engage ourselves in his devotional service. Then our lives will be successful. Therefore, Brahmaji has also said in his prayer, Sthane sthita shrudigatam tanuvan manobi. So, sthane sthita, whatever be the situation, be satisfied. But here, okay, 16th verse. Mukto pitava vibritya svadeham आरब्धमश्नन् अभिमान शून्यः यथानुभूतं प्रतियात निद्रः किं त्वन्यदेहाय गुणान् वृन्ते.
Even if one is liberated, he nevertheless accepts the body he has received according to his past karma. Without misconceptions, however, he regards his enjoyment and suffering due to that karma the way an awakened person regards a dream he had while sleeping. He thus remains steadfast and never works to achieve another material body under the influence of the three modes of material nature.
So here, Brahmaji is saying even if somebody is on the liberated position, he has to accept a body given by the Supreme Lord. Even the liberated person doesn't have a choice. Whatever body he has been given, he has to accept. So, Prabhupada is writing, the difference between liberated and conditioned soul is that conditioned soul is under the concept of bodily life, whereas liberated person knows that he is not the body but is spirit, different from the body. Privrat might have thought that although a conditioned soul is forced to act according to the laws of nature, why should he, who was far advanced in spiritual understanding, accept the same kind of bondage and impediments to spiritual advancement. Okay, so Prevrat could have thought, okay, normal conditioned soul has to accept everything. But I am so advanced. Why should I get into this bondage? To answer this doubt, Lord Brahma informed him that even those who are liberated do not resent accepting in the present body the results of their past activities. While sleeping, one dreams many unreal things, but when he awakens, he disregards them and makes progress in factual life. Similarly, a liberated person, one who has completely understood that he is not the body but a spirit soul, disregards past activities performed in ignorance and performs his present activities in such a way that they produce no reactions. Then he's quoting Yajnadat Karma Yatra. After that he says, a liberated person therefore does not think about whatever is ignorantly done in the past. Instead, he acts in such a way that he will not produce another body by fruitive activities. And then he's quoting Mamchayavjarina. And then he says, regardless of what we have done in our past lives, if we engage ourselves in unalloyed devotional service to the Lord in this life, we will always be situated in Brahmabhuta liberated state, free from reactions, and will not be obliged to accept another material body. Okay. So even the liberated person, he has a material body, and once one has a material body, then based upon one's previous karma, previous reactions, one has to face happiness and distress of that particular body. But what is the difference between the conditioned soul and the liberated soul? The liberated soul is not affected by whatever is happening in the body. The conditioned soul becomes very much affected. So just like we find in the case of even the great acharyas, so they also undergo apparent suffering, right? Because the body is there. Body means suffering. Just like even Srila Prabhupada, during his final days, so much of sickness, so much of inconvenience, so much of trouble. And we find it in the lives of so many other acharyas also. Why? Because body is there. And as long as the body is there, then the nature of the body, that's not going to change. Disease, old age, one has to face it. It's not going to change. And so therefore, whether conditioned soul or liberated soul, both have to undergo. But the difference is the liberated soul is not affected by all these various changes of the body. And then he simply tolerates all of them and goes ahead. Yes, ma'am.
So recently, like one of our boys who was attending the meeting, so he asked this question that the soul is unchanged. The soul is unchanging, and so who is experiencing the miseries and all those things? So like because the body is changing and temporary, and the soul remains unchanged. So in that way, if some experience comes, who is actually experiencing, and if misery comes or happiness comes. So just wanted to confirm if this is correct understanding that we experience miseries and whatever the material experiences which are getting, it is through our the contaminated consciousness, chitta, right? But the soul doesn't experience that, right?
So what is the answer you're giving?
That time I didn't talk about chitta because it was a lot of discussions were happening. I got a bit confused. But just to confirm from my side, I mean, my understanding is correct. So soul never experiences any material experience which whatever is coming to the body. So soul doesn't experience that, right? But it just
Then no experience.
I mean, through chitta, it remains still a chitta, right?
Yes, your point is correct. Somebody wants to elaborate a little more on that? This must have been discussed in the third canto, 26th chapter, Lord Kapila's teachings.
So I remember in one of the previous discussions from another teacher, and he gave the example of when the parents tell that to the child that the crow has run away with your ear.
Crow has run away with your ear.
Yeah. So the child, without checking, feels the misery. So the suffering which the child is going through is real, but the cause of his suffering is unreal. It is because of his misunderstanding that he's actually, there is no reason for him to cry. So similarly is our situation. The experiences which I'm getting, it's real. But the reason why, if I get the proper understanding, those sufferings will cease to exist.
Yes, that's correct. Somebody wants to add something?
If there is no soul, then definitely there is no feeling or no pain.
If there is no soul, it's dead body.
Dead body, even if you burn or something, nothing will happen. So
Correct.
it is the presence of the soul that makes that consciousness.
Yes.
And because of that covering, that we are able to feel that experience. But because of the soul, that consciousness is there. It is the characteristics of the soul that gives the consciousness. As soon as there is no soul, there is no consciousness. So the feeling and the experience is because of the presence of the soul, but it is contaminated in today's.
Yes, that's right. You want to?
Soul is eternally happy, Ananda, Sachidananda, and body is Nirananda. So when the soul is attached to the body, in the bodily consciousness, so it accepts temporarily, it accepts the qualities of the body, and therefore whatever the body goes through, the soul experiences the same.
Right. So, first canto, 7th chapter, 7th verse. What is it? Huh? First 7:7. Huh? Okay, what is that? That's the previous verse. Yeya sammohito jiva atmanam triguna. And what's the rest of the verse? Paropi manute anartham tatkritam chavipadyati. So that is the answer to the question. Yaya sammohito jiva atmanam trigunatmakam paro api. Even though the soul is transcendental by nature, but still he misidentifies himself with the three modes, Atmanam Trigunatmakam. And that is the reason why he experiences miseries. That is the answer. So the cause is Yaya Sammohito Jiva. So who's causing the sammoh? Who's causing the moha? Yes, three modes. Or the material energy. The material energy pulls the jiva into moha. Correct? Why the material energy pulls the jiva into moha? Huh?
Because of ignorance.
Okay, so why he has been put into ignorance? Yes, because of his ichha. Because he wants to enjoy independence of the Supreme Lord. So therefore the moha has to be created. Otherwise he cannot enjoy. So therefore he has been put into the material world where he thinks he can enjoy independent of the Supreme Lord. Therefore the moha has been created. And in that state of moha, he thinks himself to be the body. He identifies with the body and everything that's happening to the body, he takes it very seriously, as if it is happening to himself. And Prabhupada's famous example is the car. So something happens to the car. Sometimes here we find a 2mm paint has gone. And then what happens? Big fight, as if the man only has died. Such a big fight takes place. Why? Because he is thinking, I am the car. And Prabhupada in a few lectures he says that, again, Indian experience. So there is a person in Rolls Royce or Mercedes or whatever, and there is the Thelawala. So sometimes the person in the car, the Thela is in between, so the person says, hey Thela, move aside. As if the man has become Thela. So that is how the person is misidentifying with the body, and to the degree there is misidentification, to that degree he experiences pain. So the pain is due to what? The pain is due to the attachment. So to the degree there is misidentification with the body, then to that degree, whatever happens to the body, the person takes it very seriously. And thus, his mind is experiencing this happiness and distress. So the happiness and distress are basically experienced by the subtle body, correct? In the 13th chapter, verses 6 and 7, what Krishna is speaking there? 13th chapter, 6th verse, Krishna speaks about the constituents of the Kshetra. And in the 7th verse, he speaks about the Vikari of the Kshetra, the changes that take place in the Kshetra. The Kshetra includes both gross body and subtle body. And so, amongst those changes, two things is Sukham and Dukkham. These are changes that take place in the Kshetra, that means in the subtle body. Subtle body means basically mind, intelligence, falsehood. So the Sukha and Dukkha is experienced by the subtle body. But the subtle body is empowered by the soul. If the soul is not there, the subtle body is dead matter. It cannot do anything. But because the soul is there, therefore the subtle body is working. But now what is happening? The soul is thinking, I am only the subtle body. I am the mind. Therefore, whatever happens, whatever experience that comes to the mind, the soul thinks it is my experience. And therefore, when one comes to knowledge, then what happens? Then something happens to the car, then a devotee, suppose it's a devotee, something happens to the car, then devotee should not become so agitated, right? See, some affection will be there. We have examples in the Bhagavatam of even great devotees who have been affected by some insults or sharp words. Example? Yes, one is Dhruva Maharaj. When? No, we're not. That time he was not devotee. We're talking about devotees. Yes, when his brother was killed. When his brother was killed, then Dhruva Maharaj, he wanted to take revenge and he wanted to totally wipe out the Yakshas. And then who came to interfere? Swayambhu Manu came. He said, this is Ati Roshena, this is too much anger. For one person you are killing so many. So even Dhruva Maharaj, as Prabhupada writes in those purports, he was carried away by the Rajogun. He was carried away by the anger. So you see, that's how powerful the modes are. Even for such an elevated devotee, he could be carried away by the modes. But the point is that as soon as he got advice, then he stopped. There are two more examples of somebody who was affected. Parikshit, when? Okay, that was unprecedented. That was quite unprecedented for Parikshit.
Because that was also the plan of the Lord.
Yes, that was plan of the Lord. But we have two other examples where it was not plan of the Lord. Two great devotees who got affected.
Vidura.
Yes, Vidura, when? Yes, when Duryodhana insulted him, the Bhagavatam describes that those words like Karna Bane, arrows piercing through the ear. So even that's the point. As long as body is there, some influence of the modes is going to be there. One cannot be totally free. But then what Vidura did, that is the important point. Okay, he felt that those sharp words, but then, as we already must have discussed all that, but he was influenced by the internal energy, and therefore he took the right decision to leave the palace. And there's another devotee also like that. Who?
Lakshmana.
When?
Sita speaks.
Of course, he took that very seriously. In the Bhagavatam, Jad Bharat, Jad Bharat, when he was insulted by Maharaj Raghuguna. So there also it is mentioned. There's only one verse in that section of the Bhagavatam. Of course, that is going to come in this 5th canto. So there it is mentioned that Jad Bharat, there were waves of disturbance in the mind of Jad Bharat. Some disturbance was there. Even though he was on the liberated platform, there was some disturbance. But then we know, was he affected by that? No, he was least affected. Some disturbance was there, but he was least affected. So the point is that some happiness and distress may be experienced by even a liberated person, as Srila Prabhupada is explaining here, but he is not affected by it. Or rather, whatever decisions he takes are not based on how the mind feels, but his decisions will always be based on Guru, Sadhu and Shastra. So therefore, the happiness and distress are experienced by the mind, and how much one is going to be influenced by that is based upon the bodily misidentification. So therefore, I was hearing a lecture. Srila Prabhupada says, therefore, a devotee, when there is happiness, he is not too much elated. And similarly, when he is in distress, he is not too much affected by the distress. Huh?
Second chapter.
Yes, second chapter, the Sukheshu anudvignamana, Dukheshu vigata spriha. So that's the response of a devotee to happiness and distress. He may be temporarily affected by that, but he's not influenced. His devotional service is never impeded by those situations.
What is the shloka number?
Fifth canto, it comes in the 15th chapter. I'm not exactly remembering. 34th verse or something like that. 34th, if I'm not mistaken. Anyway.
One more mention about Lord Shiva seemingly feeling bad when his father-in-law was criticizing him.
Daksha. Son.
And he was commenting that to Sati also.
Yes. So
Even Lord Shiva.
So that comes later on in the pastime also. So when Sati wanted to go for the yajna second time, at that time Lord Shiva, he remembers all the harsh words which Daksha had spoken, and in those purports also Srila Prabhupada explains that at least temporarily Lord Shiva also became influenced by the Tamogun. Prabhupada writes over there. So why? Because he's in charge of Tamogun, so temporarily he became influenced. And therefore he experienced a lot of anger that time. Yes. So therefore, Krishna has said in the Bhagavad Gita, in the 18th chapter, I suppose that's the 40th verse, where Krishna clearly says, no living entity in the entire material world, there is no living entity who is free from the influence of three modes. There is no one. So as long as the material body is there in the material universe, then some influence of the modes is always going to be there. But how one responds to that, that's the important point. So that's what Prabhupada is saying here. So the liberated soul, he may also have to undergo the various sufferings and happiness and all that. But towards the end, regardless of what we have done in our past lives, if we engage ourselves in unalloyed devotional service to the Lord in this life, we'll always be situated in the Brahmabhuta state, free from reactions. So the liberated soul, he does not bother about what he has done in the past life and why he's getting happiness, distress. He is more concerned about the future life and how to become successful in that. Okay, 17. Vayam pramattasya vaneshvapi syad yata saste sahashat sapatnaha jitendriyasya marate budasya grihashrama kim no karothyavatyam.
Even if he goes forest to forest, one who is not self-controlled must always fear material bondage because he is living with 6 cohorts: the mind and knowledge, acquiring senses. Even householder life, however, cannot harm a self-satisfied, learned man who has conquered his senses.
Okay, so now after describing how everyone is under the control of the Supreme Lord and one has to follow the Lord's instructions, now Brahmaji is giving assurance to Priyavrat that even if you enter householder life, there's nothing to fear as long as your senses are controlled. Atmarati If one is Atmarati, there is no problem. And if one is not Atmarati, one is uncontrolled, then whether he goes to the forest or wherever he is going to be accompanied by his mind and senses, and it does not make any difference. They are simply going to pull him in all directions. But if somebody is Atmarati, then he could be anywhere. He could be in the renounced order or he could be in the Grihashram, but then he will not be affected. And that's what Prabhupada writes. Prabhupada quotes Narottam Das Thakur, Griheva Vaneti Thaki Ha Gauranga Balidaki. For one who has not controlled his senses, going to the forest to become a so-called yogi is meaningless. Because his uncontrolled mind and senses are going with him, he cannot achieve anything even by giving up household life and staying in the forest. Prabhupada is quoting a saying from Bengal. If you go to Bengal, your fortune will go with you. Point. The karma will go. Our first concern, therefore, should be to control the senses. And since the senses cannot be controlled unless engaged in the devotional service of the Lord, our most important duty is to engage the senses in devotional service. That's what is most important. He's quoting E.I. Saharidas. And then he's giving the example of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, how even though he was a responsible officer, householder, but he was constantly engaged in devotional service. And then he's quoting Prabhupada Saraswati, which he quoted very often, Durdam Teen Triyakal Sarpa Patali Prodkapadam Shraiti. The last sentence. The devotees in the Krishna consciousness movement move within this material world, but because their senses are fully engaged in the service of the Lord, they're always aloof from the material world, they're always living in a transcendental position. This is what Prabhupada expects from his devotees. Prabhupada is specifically writing, devotees in the Krishna consciousness movement. Okay, 18. Yashat sapatnan vijigi shamano griheshu nirvishyayate tapurvam atyeti durga shrita urjitarin kshineshu kamam vichare vipashita.
One who is situated in household life and who systematically conquers his mind and five sense organs is like a king in his fortress who conquers his powerful enemies. After one has been trained in household life and his lusty desires have decreased, he can move anywhere without danger.
Right, so you're saying that, okay, even if you enter household life but your senses are conquered, there's no problem. And that is the basic purpose of the Varnashram system. Prabhupada is explaining the purport. And the last sentence, the senses are considered very powerful enemies. As a king in a strong fortress can conquer powerful enemies, so a householder in Grihastha ashram, household life, can conquer the lusty desires of youth and be very secure when he takes vanaprastha and sannyas. 19th verse. Tvam tvapcha Nabhangri saroja kosha Durga shrito nirjita shat sapatnaha Bhungshveha bhogan purushadidishtan Vimukta sangha prakritim bhajasva.
Lord Brahma continued, my dear Priyavrata, seek shelter inside the opening in the lotus of the feet of the Lord, whose navel is like a lotus. Thus conquer the six sense organs, the mind and the knowledge acquisitions. Accept material enjoyment because the Lord extraordinarily has ordered you to do this. You will thus always be liberated from material association and be able to carry out the Lord's order in your constitutional position.
So here you can see Brahma is blessing him that you will always be liberated from material association. Even though you enter household life, you'll always be in the liberated position. So that's how Brahma is actually blessing him. So by following the orders, one also gets the blessing. So then of course the instruction is also there. Tvam tu apchanabha angri saroja kosha. So taking shelter, quite interesting, isn't it? Inside the opening in the lotus of the feet of the Lord. So what is this opening? So anyway, Prabhupada is explaining this. So after the Mamcha Vicharina verse, Prabhupada is explaining, Lord Brahma herein advises Priyavrata to remain transcendental in the fortress, not of family life, but of the lotus feet of the Lord. Apcha nabhangri saroja. When a bumblebee enters the opening of a lotus flower and drinks its honey, it is fully protected by the petals of the lotus. The bee is undisturbed by sunshine and other external influences. Similarly, one who always seeks shelter at the lotus feet of the personality of God is protected from all dangers. So that's the analogy which is taken into consideration while using that word, the hole inside the lotus. So he's thinking of the bumblebee, which also takes shelter of the hole inside the lotus, the opening of the lotus. Then he always remains protected. Then he's quoting this famous verse, Samashruti Padapalaplam. And then Prabhupada writes, our actual duty is to carry out the supreme order of the personality of Godhead. If we are fixed in our determination to carry out the supreme order of the Lord, we are always secure, regardless of where we are situated, whether in hell or in heaven. Doesn't matter. Narayana Parasarve, Nakudashana Vivati Swarga, Apavarga, Narkeshu, Api Tulyartha Darshana. There are lectures where Prabhupada said this. A devotee is ready to preach even in hell because he always feels secure, Lord's protection. So the important point is fixed in our determination to carry out the supreme order of the Lord. Then we are always secure. One always gets the protection. Therefore, Lord Brahma advised Priyavrat, be situated in your original position as an eternal servant of the Lord. If you carry out His orders, you will never fall even in the midst of material enjoyments. If you carry out His orders, you will never fall even in the midst of material enjoyment. As the analogy is given of the lotus. The lotus, even when present in muddy water, is never affected. Padmapatram Ivambasa. Material enjoyment achieved by dint of one's fruitive activities differs from material enjoyment given by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. A devotee sometimes appears to be in a very opulent position, but he accepts that position to follow the orders of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, a devotee is never affected by material influences. The devotees in the Krishna conscious movement are preaching all of the world in accordance with the order of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. They have to meet many karmis, but with the mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, they are unaffected by material influences. So during book distribution, one has to meet many karmis, but one will be unaffected if one is following the orders. He has blessed them. Who has blessed? Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has blessed them, as described in Chaitanya Charitamrita. Kabuna badive tumara vishaya taranga punarapi ye thani papi mora sange. Who tells this to whom? Yes, so Mahaprabhu tells this to the Kurma Brahman. So when the Kurma Brahman wanted to give up his household life and follow Mahaprabhu, right? Yes, so then Mahaprabhu told them, no, you don't have to come with me. You remain in your household life and you simply follow these instructions. What instructions he gave? That is the instruction which Mahaprabhu gave. Jare deko tare kaho, Krishna upadesh, amara ajñai, guru itare desh. And then Mahaprabhu said this. If you simply follow this instruction, kabuna badibe tumara vishaya taranga. So the vishaya taranga will never influence you. And then once again we will have your association. Punarapi thani pavi morasanti. So a sincere devotee who engages in the service of Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu by preaching his cult all over the world will never be affected by Vishaya Taranga, material influences. On the contrary, in due course of time, he will return to the shelter of the lotus feet of Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and will thus have perpetual association with him. Prabhupada is also giving blessings. So if one is totally engaged in the preaching work of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, then one will not be affected by the Vishaya Taranga. Of course, one has to follow the instructions. Sincerely. Okay, we'll just conclude with the 20th verse. Sri Shukdev Goswami continued, after thus being fully instructed by Lord Brahma, who is the spiritual master of three worlds, Priyavrat, his own position being inferior, offered obeisances, accepted the order, and carried it out with great respect, not grudgingly. Sir Bahu Manam, with great respect. You see the word to word. Shirodhara Badham, and proper translation is Badham as yes, sir. That's the only thing he said. Yes, sir. So you know, there's another verse in the Bhagavatam where Prabhupada is talking about this. Yes, sir. Manu telling to Brahma. Not exactly. This is the reference.
Brahma telling to Kardamuni.
Yes, Brahma telling Kardamuni. This is the reference. Sons ought to render service to their father exactly to this extent. One should obey the command of the father or spiritual master with a deference, saying, yes, sir. Again, you can read the book later. But then Prabhupada writes, there should be no instance in which the disciple or the son says, this is not correct, I cannot carry it out. When he says that he is fallen. So Priyavrat, he only said, yes, sir, that's all. And he offered obeisances and carried out the order. Okay, Prabhupada gives a nice purport here also. Sri Priyavrat was the grandson of Lord Brahma, therefore according to social etiquette his position was inferior. It is the duty of the inferior to carry out the order of the superior with great respect. Priyavrat therefore immediately said, yes, sir, I shall carry out your order. Priyavrat is described as a Mahabhagavad, the great devotee. The duty of a great devotee is to carry out the order of the spiritual master or the spiritual master of the spiritual master in the parampara system. As described by Evam Parampara Praptam, one has to receive the instructions of the Supreme Lord through the disciplic chain of spiritual masters. A devotee of the Lord always considers himself a servant of the servant of the servant of the Lord. Gopi Bhartur Padakamalyor, Das, 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 Anadas. Okay, where is the other reference for this Das, Das, Anadas? Besides Gopi Bhartur.
Vritrasura's prayer.
Yes, Vritrasura's prayers. And this is the reference. Hare tava padeka moola dasana daso bhavitasmi bhuyaha manasmarate manasmareta sapate gunamste grinitava karma karotu kaya. Prabhupada begins this purport by saying, this verse gives the sum and substance of devotional life. One must first become a servant of the servant of the servant of the Lord. Okay, fine. So we'll continue tomorrow. Okay, we'll send back Brahma and then we'll conclude. Okay, in the 21st verse, Lord Brahma was then worshipped by Manu, who respectfully satisfied him as well as he could. Priyavrat and Narada also looked upon Brahma with no tinges of resentment. Important. Narada was not grumbling, hey, what is this? I was teaching renunciation to my disciple, or he says counseling. And this Brahma is coming and interfering, hey, what is this? No resentment. Having engaged Priyavrat in accepting his father's request, Lord Brahma returned to his abode Satyaloka, which is indescribable with any Brahmandic man. And Prabhupada also writes this point in his purport. Both Priyavrat and Narad were exalted personalities who knew how to respect Lord Brahma. Therefore, instead of looking upon Brahma with resentment, they very feelingly offered him their respect. Feelingly offered respect. So that is Prabhupada. 22, I'll just read this last one. Swayambhu Manu, with the assistance of Lord Brahma, thus fulfilled his desires. So Swayambhu Manu's business finished, very happy. With the permission of the great sage Narada, he delivered to his son the governmental responsibility for maintaining and protecting all planets of the universe. He thus achieved relief from the most dangerous